It's an absolute treat now to be joined by a media star in his own right, and let's face it, a man that could probably run this own interview. He's also a star with the Portland Trailblazers, and we are very excited to see him in action with the Boomers over the next few months. Matisse Thybulle, it's a pleasure to speak to you, mate.
Hey, thank you. Happy to be here.
Now, I did mention the Boomers, and pretty exciting news yesterday with the Boomers, the Opals, the Gliders and the Rollers, the 3x3 teams, all going to be involved in Melbourne, pre-Olympics and Paralympics as well, against Team China for the Boomers specifically. How exciting is this to be able to play in Australia before you're obviously on the road for an extended period of time?
Oh, I mean, it's great. I think for the last campaign, we had to go to Las Vegas in the States, and it's just not the same. Although there was a couple of fans, we saw a couple of jerseys out there. To do it like on your home soil is really nice.
And you know, the Boomers did play some games against Team China, and the one takeaway that I have from that is a lot of the guys saying it felt like a road game. So yes, there'll be some Boomers fans there, but it's expected that it'll be a pretty raucous atmosphere at John Cain Arena as well.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what you hope for, right? Like, you want it to be competitive. We're using this as an opportunity to prepare for a gold medal run, so I want it to be as real as possible.
Can I ask about the benefits of playing against high-quality opposition? After this series in Melbourne, you're going to head to Abu Dhabi, you'll play Team USA, you'll play Serbia as well. And I know that there was some talk after the last World Cup campaign, without disrespecting any nations, that perhaps it would have been better to play some of the absolute best teams in the world. How can that help you guys get prepared?
I mean, you want to have a sense of where you stack up, right? So we can only do so much in our inter-squad scrimmages, and then the next step after that is just finding the best competition around the world to, like, you know, sharpen your iron against, and being able to go to Abu Dhabi, play, was it and Team USA, being able to really see how you stack up as a team against the best players in the world is what allows you to fine-tune the stuff that you need to work on right before the games get going.
So Matisse, you know that we, journos and fans, we look at the Team USA squad and we say, okay, there are some serious names there. You're playing against these guys on a daily basis. Do you take any note of when they drop that squad and the level of competition? Obviously, in your path, as you say, you're on the road to hopefully a gold medal.
You know what I take it as is the team that they sent to the last Olympics versus the team that they're sending this go around, it shows that they have a real fear of not being able to compete. And so for them to put together what's going to be a historic roster of Hall of Fame players to compete against the rest of the world, you know, I think is a compliment and a testament to just how good teams are getting. And I mean, for us, we're just up for the challenge.
Defensively then, and we know you're going to be one of the premier defenders on this team, but I think talent right across the board. What did you take away from the World Cup? Because I know, speaking with Gorge a lot, he's pointed to the defensive side of the ball that he thinks that there is a significant level of improvement.
Yeah, I think just athletically, we just have such elite athletes on this team, and we're going to be able to do things that I don't think the Boomers have been able to do in the past, and a lot of that's going to show up defensively, and being able to control the game on that end of the floor does a lot in the FIBA game comparatively to what I'm used to in the NBA, where defense is a bit of a dying breed.
I'm going to ask you about defense in the NBA a little bit later on. But what did you take away from the World Cup last year then? Because I think it's been interesting speaking to the guys on the roster and Gorge just about the personal takeaways. Because we understand, we can just look at the wins and losses and say, well, it was disappointing, but you were in there, there was a bunch of new players. How do you view what happened and what you've learned from that?
I view it as a necessary but ugly step in the process. When you have as many new players as we have and are transitioning away from a style of play that's, you know, kind of been there for the last 12, 15 years, it's going to be uncomfortable. And the World Cup was our chance to, you know, feel it out and see how things look. Because on paper, you're always going to have something that's a little bit different once you put it into practice. So the World Cup, as unfortunate and disappointing as people may think it was, it's going to be, it will have been an extremely valuable step in us being able to do what we want to go do in the Olympics.
I'm curious if we move to the NBA now, how this season's experience has been with you. We know you signed the deal with Portland to come back there. And it's interesting for me because you had been in Philly for a period of time where there was hopes to win a title. Now you go to a team that is a young roster, and just overall, it's a different experience. What did you take out of it, and how did it change for you?
I mean, it's like two different worlds almost. You go from just for some teams, you judge your season based off of All-Star break, right? That's like kind of the halfway point. And in Philly, after All-Star break, our season was just getting started because we're preparing for the playoffs. And in Portland, it was kind of the writing was on the wall, and our season was coming to an end. And it's just been mentally a really different approach, especially with such young guys, trying to lead them and help them grow. Just because when you're on a team that's young and struggling to find wins, it really comes about who are you trying to become as a player in this league and as a team. And so just taking on a little bit of a different approach as opposed to feeling the pressure of having to win right now.
So I think, again, someone like me can simplify it so much and say, well, you probably want to be on a winning team, but just some of the things that you've pointed to there, how did you find the enjoyment? Because I guess the flip side of this is that you were playing every night and you were playing big minutes, and there were stretches there with Philly where that wasn't the case. So how did you personally find the experience and the differences?
Yeah, I think I got to discover myself a little bit more as a player. The NBA is obviously one of the harder leagues in the world, and it can be really hard to break out of a niche or to break away from the labels that have been put on you. And on the team that we had this past year, I was given a little bit more of a rope to explore offensively and do a little bit more on defense. And I think I was able to show myself, my teammates, coaches, whoever may have been watching, just that I have a little bit more to offer on both ends of the court. And so just being able to take that into the summer where I can train a little bit more, take it into the Olympics, take it into my next season, I think overall was a really valuable part of my career.
So we were fortunate enough to have some time with Scoot Henderson at All-Star Weekend. And as soon as I mentioned your name, he started laughing, and he's like, watching him at practice is the craziest thing I've ever seen defensively. He just does stuff that I've never seen before. He loves you, understandably so. So for you, when you talk about that, whether it is the teaching, whether it is just honestly the difference between playing on this team where there's a lot of development and progress compared to you've got Joel Embiid standing behind you, what did the defensive side of the game feel like to you, comparing both of those, and how did you change?
I mean, I went from I started off my career in Philly, right? So the lens that I was viewed at as just kind of a young player, just trying to find his way in the NBA. And although not much time has changed between my time in Philly and my time in Portland, the perspective shifted because what I was able to establish as far as the player I am and what I'm capable of in Philadelphia. When I came to Portland, people saw me as what I was able to achieve. So I came in with people looking at me for advice or answers or guidance. And it was so different from what I was used to because I was always looked at as like, he's finding his way. And now I'm on this new team and it's like, oh, he's actually figured something out and utilizing me in that way and feeling like I was an asset for young guys like Scoot or our coaches and just being able to, interact with the game and my team and teammates in a way that I hadn't before. It's been really fun.
So I always love chatting to you because you do think about the game, it seems like, in a deep way, or at least you explain it better than most, I would say. So did you feel like you were ready for that? I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but it feels like it's going to be such a mental change of the shift in the role. Did you feel like that was a big adjustment, or you were ready to just move into that?
I didn't know. So I didn't know it was going to happen, right? So I feel like it was something that it kind of, I started to just have to grow with because I just noticed little things. It showed up subtly in just how, like, why is that person asking me that question? Or how come they're not getting mad at me for this or whatever, however it showed up. It was something that I had to just kind of tune into within my environment. And I think, if anything, this year was a lot of observation and just starting to feel where I'm at in my career. And then I'm hoping that now I can take that and become more of a leader and a little bit more of a teacher, because when I look back, I'm like, I actually have learned some things and accomplished some things in this league that I'd want to be able to pass on to the next guy.
Yeah, last one on that, because I just find it so fascinating. What about the idea of pressure as an NBA player then? Because you're always going to put expectations on yourself, I'm sure. I believe that. That's probably why you are where you are. But was there any change in the level of pressure when you talk about the winning expectation in Philly to now going to Portland? And as you said, maybe having an extended rope and the freedom that afforded you. Was there anything in that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, to put that into words is actually going to be challenging, because the freedom to breathe a little bit. And I think part of that comes from the team, the environment that you're in. But another part of it, and you talked about this earlier, was just having a contract that kind of solidifies me with a monetary value in this league. Because up until you sign that contract, you kind of, everything's conceptual. You exist as a theory of what's possible. And then when it comes time to put a number on it, that for me is what allowed me to really feel free. Like, you know what, worse comes to worse, like my family will be taken care of, I'll be taken care of financially. And for whatever reason, being able to release myself of that burden allowed me to open up even more as a player and not have to be so fearful of the mistakes that I could make, and be like, you know what, I actually think they think that I might actually know what I'm doing. So I can, run with that a little bit more.
I love that. Where does Chauncey Billups fit into that? Because you, as someone who has a few more years experience, I know, again, talking to Scoot, he was saying that how valuable it's been to have one of the great guards that we've seen in the last 2 decades. What was the experience for you having such a younger coach?
Yeah, it's been really cool. And I had a chance to even, flip the roles and interview him earlier in the season. And that brought so much insight for me, just in how he viewed the game as a player, and then being able to see how that showed up in him as a coach. But ultimately, I think having a coach who can see you as a player and understand where you're at, it's, you can't really it's hard to even explain it, but like for a young player like Scoot, for example, like his first experience in the league, everything's new. You don't even really understand what you're experiencing. But to have a coach that can empathize with that. And then for myself, just being a player who's trying to establish themselves, and Chauncey having been in that position, just being able to relate on that human of a level helps the basketball stuff so much.
I love it, and it was a great segue by you as well, because you mentioned the fact that you interviewed Chauncey, and I would say the greatest story for maybe me this year in Australian basketball is Duop Reath, and if you go to Matisse Thybulle's YouTube page, you'll see one of the great features that has been put out there. So let me ask you this question, because we've spoke to Duop here. He's a great guy. He's so nice. What don't we know about Duop Reath? Because you've been everywhere with this man this year. Well, what can you tell us about your experience on the road in the NBA with Duop?
I mean, first of all, he's hilarious. And I'm not sure how much of that translates in an interview, because it's hard to really open up and be yourself, but Duop is hilarious. He also has an energy about him that it was fun to see my NBA teammates learn to appreciate. And it's just that he shows up with this consistent level of happiness and gratitude. And the NBA season is a grueling one, and it wears on people. But to have a guy like Duop in the locker room who can help you weather those storms with just his persistent joy and appreciation for where he's at, it does a lot. So if you know his story, you understand where it comes from. But to be able to see it every day is what really makes it special.
I think from the outside, one thing that for fans they try and get a grasp of is the connection and relationship that teammates might have. And I keep referencing All-Star Weekend, but it was just when this happened. He signed that contract, and we've seen the happiness from people that were around the team. How can you explain that when you see a guy that is grinding like he is? Now, clearly you know him better than most, but then to get that reward and that compensation that you were speaking about, how that made you feel, how does that connection with teammates evolve?
I mean, I joke. I've probably spent more time with Duop than like my childhood best friends or my sister or my dad, because we've been together every year for the last 3, and now this year will be 2 years of in season and out of season together. It's like that. I mean, that does a lot as far as forging a connection and a friendship. And I think for me, as far as his basketball career goes, I think to have met him at training camp, and here's a guy who doesn't think he can even make the team, to now see him at Trailblazers practice facility, killing and like just putting on a show in front of like real NBA talent. It's just cool to see, because he wasn't that player, and he's become that player. And so, you know, when you look at guys, you often just think like, oh, they must always have been good, but, and not to say Watt hasn't been a talented player, but he's refined himself further from just the years that I've known him into a player that like he's on the court guarding your favorite NBA player now, and they're having problems trying to guard him.
Yeah, well, we love it, and we expect that to see both of you on the floor in Paris as well. I can't let you go before I do ask about the media career and if there's any update. Where do you see this going? Because we do see that you're one of the great personalities in terms of letting fans inside maybe what you're going through, and then some stories from inside the team. Where do you see it going?
You know, I don't know where the destination is, but, and this will be like a shameless shout out. One of my best friends, Matthew Thybulle, put out a film called Rose Gold, a documentary on the Boomers. And him and I just continue to work together and brainstorm and try to create. Like, he's my partner with the interviews with Duop and Chauncey. And I think between the two of us, it's just we trust our intuition, and we'll just continue to create, and wherever that takes us, honestly.
Oh, I love it. Adipone, you're one of the greats. Matisse, you as well. You've got to come out here sometime to Bristol. We'll get you in studio and we'll have a chat there. Last question I got for you. What does the next few months look like, and what do you think of when you think about the Paris Olympics? Because we know that it's been such a quick turnaround from the World Cup. Gorge has been out. He's visited you guys. What are you mentally preparing for, and how do you look forward to the next few months?
You know, that's a really good question. It's been the thing that we've been talking about the most. Like, whether I'm playing against Jock in Houston or Joe in Orlando or Patty now in Miami, and then there's Dante and Greeny and Giddy. Whenever we see each other, it's, so what are we doing for Boomers? What's happening? And there's been talks of we're going to do open gym, like play pickup runs with guys who are still in the States in California, or guys setting some things up in Melbourne or Sydney. But honestly, I think the biggest thing is just getting back together, because we spend so much time on these other teams making our living. It's now like get back to the passion of the game, and being able to do that with the guys we go to war with at each summer. And yeah, so for us, it's just getting back together on the court. I think that's the next step.
Well, we're all very excited to see the Boomers back together, and the Opals and all the Australian teams. Starts in Melbourne in July. Matisse, you're always great to speak to. Appreciate your honesty and your openness. It's a lot of fun.
Cool. Thank you for having me. It was great talking to you.